7 guys, one massive question. We asked real American moms, not fans, not teenagers, moms, which BTS member they'd want as their son-in-law. And honestly, the results are wild. Which member did they call too pretty to trust? Who do they say reminds them of the boy next door who actually has his life together? And who claimed the #1 spot as the ultimate dream son-in-law? You think you know the answer, but trust me, you don't. From number 7 to number 1, every rank has a reason. Let's get into it.
Number 7. Suga. And yeah, we're starting right here at number 7. And before any Suga stands come for us, just hear this out. Because landing at number 7 on this list doesn't mean American moms don't respect Min Yoon-gi. Oh, they do. They really, really do. But respect and I want him dating my daughter are two very different conversations. And that's exactly where things get interesting. See, when we presented Suga's profile to American mothers across different states, different backgrounds, different age groups, the reaction was almost universally the same. They'd look at his photo, maybe watch a clip of him producing music in his studio, see him sitting quietly at an interview while the other members were being loud and chaotic, and they'd say something like, "He seems intimidating." And that word kept coming up. Intimidating. Not in a scary way, not in a mean way, but in that very specific way where you meet someone and you just know they're operating on a different intellectual frequency than most people around them. And for moms, that's a yellow flag, not a red one. Yellow. Because here's what American moms value more than almost anything else in a potential son-in-law: approachability. They want the guy who walks into Thanksgiving dinner and immediately offers to help set the table. They want the guy who makes small talk with Uncle Jerry about football, even if he knows nothing about football. They want warmth that's obvious, not warmth that you have to dig for. And Suga, his warmth is buried deep. It's real. Oh, it's absolutely real. But it's buried under layers of cool, layers of quiet confidence, layers of I'd rather be in my studio than at a family barbecue energy. And moms picked up on that instantly. Let's talk facts for a second, because this is where it gets fascinating. Min Yoon-gi, born March 9, 1993 in Daegu, South Korea, a city known for its tough, straightforward people. He grew up in a family that wasn't wealthy. His parents initially opposed his dream of becoming a musician. He worked as a delivery boy, he struggled with depression, he injured his shoulder in a serious accident while working a part-time job, and he still pushed through to become one of the most respected music producers in the entire K-pop industry, arguably in the global music industry. Under his producing alias August D, he's released solo mixtapes and albums that deal with mental health, societal pressure, self-worth, and the raw, unfiltered reality of chasing dreams when the world tells you to stop. His mixtape August D dropped in 2016 and was a raw, aggressive declaration of identity. D2 followed in 2020 with even more depth, and his solo album D-Day in 2023 was a full artistic statement that included a world tour, a solo world tour that sold out arenas globally. The man performed at major venues across the United States, and fans, many of them adult women, many of them mothers themselves, wept openly during his performances. So why does all of this land him at number 7? Because American moms, when evaluating son-in-law material, aren't evaluating career achievements, they're evaluating energy. They're evaluating how it would feel to have this person in their home, at their dinner table, interacting with their family on a random Sunday afternoon. And when they watched clips of Suga in group settings, especially on shows like Run BTS or variety show appearances, they noticed something consistent. He's the one sitting back. He's the one with his arms crossed, smirking, watching the chaos unfold. He's the one who drops a savage one-liner and then goes silent again. And moms loved that about him, as a person. But as a son-in-law, they weren't sure. He seems like the type who'd sit on his phone during family dinner, not because he's rude, but because he just doesn't do small talk. And that's the thing. She wasn't wrong. Suga himself has openly admitted that he's introverted, that he recharges by being alone, that he finds excessive social interaction draining. In a culture like South Korea, that's understood and even respected. But in American family culture, especially in the Midwest and the South, where big family gatherings are a thing, that kind of personality can feel distant. Moms want a son-in-law who's going to pick up their grandkid and spin him around, who's going to laugh loudly at dad's terrible jokes, who's going to be present in a way that fills the room. And Suga fills a room differently. He fills it with quiet authority, with an aura that says, I'm here, but on my own terms. There's also the health factor that several moms brought up, and this is actually really touching. Many of them had read or heard about Suga's shoulder surgery, his struggles with mental health, his open discussions about therapy and meditation, and instead of seeing that as a weakness, they saw it as something deeply human. But it also triggered their maternal instinct in a protective way.
Number 6. Jungkook. Yeah, you read that right. Jungkook, the most followed person on Instagram at one point. The guy whose solo debut, 7, featuring Lotto, smashed streaming records worldwide. The man who performed at the FIFA World Cup opening ceremony in Qatar in front of billions of people. The so-called Golden Mockney, who can sing, dance, rap, paint, film, edit, do photography, play sports, and basically excel at anything he touches within 48 hours. That Jungkook is at number 6. And if you're shocked, don't be. Because once you hear what American moms actually said about him, it's going to make so much sense that you'll wonder why you didn't see it coming. Here's the thing about Jungkook that changes everything when you shift the lens from fan perspective to mom perspective. Fans see Jungkook and they see perfection. They see the abs, the tattoos, the doe eyes, the voice that can shift from a delicate falsetto to a full-power belt in half a second. They see a superstar. But moms see something completely different. They see a boy, not a man, a boy. And that distinction is everything on this list. Jungkook was born on September 1st, 1997 in Busan, South Korea. He auditioned for a Korean talent show called Superstar K in 2011 and didn't make it past the auditions, but multiple entertainment companies scouted him because even at that age, his raw talent was undeniable. He was only 15 when BTS debuted in June 2013. 15. While most kids his age were figuring out high school, Jungkook was learning choreography, recording in studios, and being thrust into the unforgiving world of K-pop as the youngest member of a group that had no guarantee of success. And every mom who heard that story had the exact same reaction. Oh, that poor baby. Not, oh, what a cool career. Not, wow, he's so talented. Their first instinct was maternal protection. They heard 15-year-old kid leaves his family in Busan to live in a dorm with 6 older guys in Seoul to chase a dream in an industry known for chewing up and spitting out young people, and their mom radar went off. And that instinct, that deep, primal protective instinct, is precisely what kept Jungkook from climbing higher on this list. Because American moms didn't look at Jungkook and think son-in-law. They looked at him and thought, I want to feed this kid a home-cooked meal and make sure he's sleeping enough. Multiple moms across the survey literally said some version of, he's not the one I'd want dating my daughter. He's the one I'd want to adopt. And that is such a fascinating psychological response when you think about it. Jungkook's public persona, despite his tattoos, despite his more mature solo era with tracks like 3D and Standing Next to You, which leaned heavily into a sexy, confident, grown man aesthetic, still carries an energy that screams youngest sibling. It's in the way he looks at his hyungs. It's in the way he giggles when he's embarrassed. It's in the way he clings to the other members during interviews, the way he gets shy when someone compliments him directly, the way his eyes go wide when he's excited about something small, like a new flavor of ramen or a really good sunset. These micro behaviors, these tiny moments that fans have cataloged in millions of compilation videos on YouTube, create a composite image in a mother's mind that says, this is a child in a man's body, and I need to protect him, not hand him my daughter.
Now, let's talk about the tattoo conversation, because this actually came up a lot in the survey, and it's hilarious. Jungkook has a full sleeve tattoo on his right arm, plus additional tattoos on his hands and other areas. In Korean culture, tattoos still carry a certain stigma. They're often blurred on television broadcasts. But in American culture, tattoos are far more normalized, especially among younger generations. So you'd think American moms wouldn't care, right? Wrong. The moms who participated in this survey were largely in their 40s to 60s, and while many of them were perfectly fine with tattoos in general, something about Jungkook's tattoos specifically made them uneasy. Not because of the tattoos themselves, but because of the contrast. He has this baby face, a mom from California explained, and then you see the full sleeve, and it's like it doesn't match. It feels like he's trying to grow up too fast. And another mom from Virginia added, "My daughter showed me his photos, and I said, honey, he looks like he's still figuring himself out. That's not a bad thing, but that's not son-in-law energy. That's finding yourself energy." And that observation is actually incredibly perceptive, because if you follow Jungkook's evolution from 2013 to now, that's exactly what he's been doing, finding himself.
Number 5. J-Hope. Okay, let's talk about Jung Ho-sak, or as the world knows him, J-Hope, because this man's placement on the list caused more debate among American moms than any other member. And when I say debate, I mean full-on kitchen table, coffee in hand, no, let me finish my point level disagreement. Because J-Hope is one of those people who doesn't get a lukewarm reaction. You either love his energy or you find it overwhelming. And American moms fell into both camps almost perfectly split down the middle, which is exactly why he ended up here at number 5, right in the center of the list, which poetically is kind of perfect for a guy who's always been the emotional center of BTS. Let's start with what everyone sees first, because it's impossible to miss: the energy. Jung Ho-sak, born February 18, 1994 in Gwangju, South Korea, is quite literally the most energetic human being many people have ever witnessed. Before BTS, he was already an award-winning street dancer in the Gwangju underground dance scene. He won a national dance competition as a teenager, he was part of a street dance crew called Neuron, and was known locally as one of the best young dancers in the entire region. When Big Hit Entertainment, now HYBE, was putting BTS together, they recruited Ho-sak specifically because they needed someone who could anchor the group's dance performance, someone who could be the backbone of choreography so complex that it would eventually set a global standard for synchronized group dancing. And he delivered. Oh, did he deliver? If you've ever watched BTS perform Dionysus live, or Mama, or Mic Drop at the American Music Awards, or literally any of their concert stages, your eyes eventually find J-Hope. Not because he's the tallest or the loudest, but because his body moves with a precision and a joy that is almost inhuman. Dance critics, professional choreographers, people who have spent their entire careers studying movement, they've all said the same thing. J-Hope is not just a good dancer, he's a great dancer, world class, the kind of dancer who could headline a contemporary dance company if Kpop had never happened. And American moms saw that. They watched the performance clips we showed them, and their jaws dropped. "He moves like water," a mom from New Jersey said. "I've taken my daughter to dance recitals for 12 years, and I've never seen anyone move like that." But here's where it gets complicated, and honestly, this is the part that makes J-Hope's position on this list so fascinating from a cultural psychology standpoint. When we moved past the performance clips and showed moms J-Hope in casual settings, variety shows, behind-the-scenes footage, V-Live streams, airport arrivals, the energy didn't stop. It never stops. J-Hope is loud. J-Hope is expressive. J-Hope screams, he jumps, he does sound effects with his mouth, he hypes everyone around him, he turns every room into a party, and he does it all with a smile so wide it looks like his face might split in two. In Korean culture, and especially within BTS, this is celebrated. He's called the group's sunshine and mood maker for a reason. When the energy is low, when the members are tired or stressed or overwhelmed, J-Hope is the one who lifts everyone up. There are countless behind-the-scenes moments where you can see a member looking exhausted or anxious, and J-Hope just appears next to them with a goofy face or an exaggerated dance move, and suddenly they're laughing. He is, in the truest sense of the word, a healer. But, and here's the cultural gap, American moms, particularly those from more reserved, suburban, or rural backgrounds, found that level of constant high energy exhausting to watch. "He's wonderful," a mom from Minnesota said, choosing her words carefully, "but could he ever just sit still? Like, if we're all watching a movie on a Sunday night, is he going to be bouncing off the couch? I need to know that my son-in-law can do calm." And that comment opened a floodgate. Other moms echoed similar sentiments. "I love him as a performer, but I can't imagine him at a quiet family dinner. He reminds me of my nephew who has ADHD, and I love my nephew, but living with that energy every day is a lot. I'd need him to have an off switch." Now, here's what's important and what makes this conversation deeper than surface-level judgments. The moms who said these things weren't being cruel. They were being honest about compatibility. American family culture, especially in the heartland, values a certain kind of steady, calm, reliable, masculine energy. The dad who sits in his recliner reading the paper. The husband who quietly fixes the leaky faucet on Saturday morning. The son-in-law who shakes your hand firmly, looks you in the eye, and says, "Thank you for having me, ma'am." J-Hope's energy doesn't fit that mold. And that's not a flaw in J-Hope. That's a difference in cultural expectations. But it did affect his ranking.
Number 4, BTS V. Kim Taehyung V. The man whose face has been called the most handsome in the world so many times that it stopped being an opinion and started feeling like a scientific fact. The man who went viral just by existing at a fashion show. The man who sat in the audience at a concert once and the performer on stage got distracted looking at him. We are talking about a level of physical beauty so extreme, so aggressive, so almost offensive in its perfection that it actually, and this is not a joke, became the primary reason American moms hesitated to rank him higher. And if that sounds insane, just wait, because the psychology behind why moms placed V at number 4 is one of the most fascinating things to come out of this entire survey. And it reveals something deep about what mothers really think when they imagine their daughter bringing someone home. But first, let's establish who Kim Taehyung actually is beyond the face, because this man is so much more than visuals, and reducing him to his looks is something the industry has done for years that honestly does him a massive disservice. Born December 30th, 1995, in Daegu, South Korea, the same city as Suga, interestingly, Taehyung grew up in a farming family in Gyeochang, a rural area in the South Gyeongsang province. His upbringing was modest. He wasn't from Seoul, he wasn't from a wealthy entertainment family, he wasn't groomed from childhood to be a star. He was a country kid who played saxophone in his school band and originally went to a BTS audition to support his friend. He wasn't even planning to audition himself. But a big hit staff member saw him and essentially begged him to try out. He did, he got in, and the rest is history that rewrote what the word star means in the 21st century. Now here's what makes V different from every other member on this list, and it's the thing that both captivated and confused American moms in almost equal measure. Kim Taehyung is an enigma. He is genuinely, authentically, unapologetically weird, and I say that with the deepest love and admiration. He's the member who talks to animals like they understand him. He's the member who zones out mid-interview because he saw a cloud that looked interesting. He's the one who will randomly start speaking in a deep, cartoonish voice for no reason. He's the one who takes photos of mundane objects, a crack in the sidewalk, a shadow on a wall, a single leaf, and posts them as art. He collects vintage items. He's obsessed with paintings. He's friends with actors and artists far outside the K-pop bubble. He has a personal aesthetic that shifts between 1950s jazz lounge singer and alien prince visiting Earth for the first time. He exists on a wavelength that most people can tune into just enough to be fascinated, but never quite enough to fully understand. And when American moms encountered this energy, the reactions were wild. Let's start with the looks, because that's what hit first and hit hardest. When we showed moms V's photos, and we deliberately chose a range, from casual selfies to high-fashion editorial shots to candid behind-the-scenes moments, the room went silent almost every time. Not figuratively, literally silent. Moms would just
Stare. That's not a real person, a mom from Arizona said flatly. That's CGI. When told that no, that is indeed a real human man, she shook her head and said, my daughter would lose her mind, and honestly, so would I. And that's the problem. And that was the thread that unraveled everything. Because when mom after mom after mom was asked, would you want him as your son-in-law? The answer kept coming back to some version of, he's too beautiful. I wouldn't trust it. Now, before anyone screams about how unfair that is, and it is unfair, let's be real, let's understand where this is coming from psychologically. American moms, particularly those who've been through marriages themselves, who've watched their friends' marriages, who've seen the full spectrum of what relationships look like over 10, 20, 30 years, have a deeply ingrained skepticism towards men who are too perfect on the outside. It's not rational. They know it's not rational, but it's there. It's the same instinct that makes a mom say, if he seems too good to be true, he probably is. It's a protective mechanism born from experience, from heartbreak, from watching beautiful people get away with things that average-looking people never would. A man that beautiful will always have options, a mom from Michigan said, and you could hear 30 years of life experience in that single sentence. And I don't want my daughter spending her marriage wondering if she's enough. That comment lingered in the room like smoke, because it wasn't about V specifically. It was about what extreme beauty represents in the maternal imagination. It represents risk. It represents the possibility that the world will always be throwing itself at your son-in-law, and your daughter will always be competing with the world.
Number 3, Jimin. Park Jimin. The name alone carries a weight that's almost impossible to describe unless you've been paying attention. And if you've been paying attention to BTS for any length of time, then you already know that Jimin occupies a space in this group that nobody else can touch. He's not the leader, he's not the eldest, he's not the youngest, he's not the loudest. But ask any ARMY who the emotional heartbeat of BTS is, who the member is that makes you feel things you weren't prepared to feel, and Jimin's name will come up over and over and over again. And when American moms evaluated him as a potential son-in-law, something remarkable happened. They didn't just like him. They didn't just admire him. They got emotional about him. And that emotional response, raw, unexpected, almost involuntary, is exactly what landed Park Jimin in the top 3 of this list and nearly pushed him even higher. Let's start from the beginning, because Jimin's origin story is one of the most compelling in all of BTS, and understanding where he came from is essential to understanding why moms responded to him the way they did. Born October 13, 1995, in Busan, South Korea, Park Jimin was not your typical K-pop trainee. Before joining Big Hit Entertainment, he was a top student at Busan High School of Arts, where he studied contemporary dance as his major. Not K-pop dance, not hip-hop, contemporary, modern, the kind of dance that requires you to strip away everything performative and move from pure emotion, pure vulnerability, pure truth. And if you've ever seen Jimin dance, truly watched him, not just glanced, you've seen what that training did to him. Every movement he makes tells a story. Every gesture has intention. When the other members are hitting choreography with power and precision, Jimin is hitting it with his soul. There's a reason fans call him the best performer in K-pop, and it's not just technique. It's the fact that when Jimin dances, you can feel what he's feeling. And that emotional transparency, that ability to wear his heart not just on his sleeve, but on his entire body, that's what got the moms. The very first thing multiple mothers said when they saw clips of Jimin wasn't about his dancing, or his singing, or his looks. It was about his eyes. His eyes are so honest, a mom from Massachusetts said, and she said it in this quiet, reverent tone that made everyone in the room stop and listen. You can see everything in his eyes. He can't hide anything. And that is what you want in a son-in-law. A man who can't fake it. And she's right. Jimin's expressiveness is legendary. When he's happy, his entire face transforms. His eyes disappear into crescent moons, his cheeks push up, and his smile becomes so wide and so pure that it's been scientifically compared to the facial expressions associated with genuine, unguarded joy. When he's sad, his eyes fill up and his lower lip trembles, and you can literally watch his heart break in real time. When he's performing, his gaze becomes intense, focused, almost hypnotic. He stares into the camera, or into the audience with an intimacy that makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. This emotional openness is what separated Jimin from every other member in the mom's evaluation. Because while other members had qualities that moms admired from a distance, Suga's intelligence, Jungkook's talent, J-Hope's energy, V's artistry, Jimin had a quality that moms felt personally. He made them feel like they knew him. He made them feel like if he walked into their living room, he'd immediately sense the emotional temperature of the room and adjust accordingly. He's the type of man who would notice if I'd been crying, a mom from South Carolina said. And he wouldn't just ask if I was okay. He'd sit down next to me and wait until I was ready to talk. That observation didn't come from nowhere. It came from watching how Jimin interacts with the other BTS members. And this is where the facts really start to build a compelling case. Within BTS, Jimin is known as the most physically affectionate member. He hugs the others constantly. He holds their hands. He rests his head on their shoulders. He sends them long, emotional text messages telling them how much they mean to him. When Jungkook, the youngest, went through difficult moments during their early career, it was Jimin who stayed closest to him, who shared a room with him, who made sure he was eating and sleeping. When Taehyung was struggling with the pressure of fame, Jimin was the one who sat with him and listened, not trying to fix it, just being present. The members themselves have said repeatedly in interviews that Jimin is the glue. He's the one who checks on everyone. He's the one who remembers birthdays, who sends care packages, who shows up at your door when you haven't responded to messages in 2 days because he's worried. And mom saw all of this and they melted. Completely melted. He takes care of people, a mom from New York said firmly. Not because someone told him to. Because it's who he is. That's not something you can teach. You either have that or you don't, and that boy has it. Now, let's talk about his solo career, because this added a fascinating layer to the conversation. Jimin's first solo album, Face, released in March 2023, debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, making him the first Korean solo artist to ever top the Billboard 200. Let that sink in. Not BTS as a group. Park Jimin. Alone. #1 in America. The lead single, Like Crazy, also hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making him the first Korean solo artist to achieve that milestone as well. He didn't just break records. He made records that didn't exist before him. And the album itself was deeply personal. Face dealt with loneliness, anxiety, identity, and the terrifying question of who am I when the lights go off and the crowd goes home. It was Jimin stripping away the idol armor and showing the world the vulnerable, sometimes frightened, sometimes lost human being underneath. His second album, Muse, in 2024 continued this journey, with the mega hit, Who dominating global charts and proving that his debut wasn't a fluke. Jimin as a solo artist is a force. When moms heard Like Crazy and learned that it was about the disorienting loneliness of losing yourself in fame, several of them reacted with a protectiveness that was almost fierce. He needs someone who's going to take care of him, a mom from Wisconsin said. He spends so much time taking care of everyone else. Who's taking care of Jimin? And that question is the key to understanding why Jimin is at #3 and not #1. Because as much as moms loved him, and they loved him, they also worried about him. Jimin has been openly self-critical throughout his career in a way that borders on painful to watch. There are multiple documented instances of him being dissatisfied with performances that everyone else thought were flawless. He's talked about skipping meals to maintain his appearance, about feeling like he's never good enough, about crying alone in practice rooms because he made a mistake that literally nobody noticed. He's mentioned struggles with self-esteem, with body image, with the crushing weight of wanting to be perfect for the fans who love him. And moms, being moms, saw right through the smile and the crescent eyes and the angelic voice, straight to the wound underneath. He gives everything. A mom from Indiana said slowly, and I'm afraid there wouldn't be anything left for himself. I've seen that in people before. They love so hard that they forget to save some love for themselves. And that breaks my heart. Several moms expressed concern that Jimin's intense desire to please, to be perfect, to take care of everyone around him, could lead to emotional burnout in a marriage. They worried that he'd be the type of husband who puts his wife's happiness so far above his own that he disappears in the process. My daughter doesn't need a martyr. A mom from Washington State said bluntly. She needs a partner. Someone who can say I need space, or I'm not okay right now, without feeling like he's letting everyone down. And that concern, rooted in genuine care, not criticism, is what kept Jimin from the top 2. It's the cruelest irony on this entire list. The very quality that made moms love Jimin the most, his boundless, selfless, almost sacrificial capacity to love, is the same quality that made them worry he'd lose himself in a relationship. His physical appearance, by the way, was barely discussed compared to other members, which is interesting because Jimin is objectively stunning. His features are delicate, almost ethereal, high cheekbones, full lips, eyes that shift between fierce and tender depending on the angle. He's been the face of global campaigns. He's been named in countless, most beautiful lists, and his airport fashion alone generates thousands of articles. But moms didn't fixate on his looks. They fixated on his character. And that tells you everything about what mothers are really evaluating when they think about who their daughter should marry. They looked past the surface, past the Grammy-nominated artist, past the Billboard record breaker, past the man who sold out arenas worldwide. And they saw a kind, sensitive, hardworking boy from Busan who just wants to be loved as much as he loves others. And they wanted that for him. They genuinely, from the bottom of their maternal hearts, wanted Park Jimin to be happy. If my daughter married him, a mom from Connecticut said, and her voice cracked slightly when she said it, I'd spend the rest of my life making sure he knew he was enough. Because I don't think anyone's told him that enough. Park Jimin. Number 3. Not because he's lacking anything, but because the moms who loved him the most were also the moms who worried about him the most. And if that isn't the most Jimin thing you've ever heard, then you haven't been paying attention. Now the top 2. Number 2 RM. Kim Namjoon. RM. The leader of BTS. The man who taught himself English by watching Friends, with no subtitles. The man who stood at the podium of the United Nations General Assembly, not once, not twice, but multiple times, and delivered speeches about self-love, youth empowerment, and the importance of finding your own voice, in fluent English, to an audience of world leaders, while being a 20-something-year-old rapper from South Korea. If you're looking for the moment that American moms sat up in their chairs and said, wait, tell me more about this one, it was the exact second they watched that UN footage. Because everything changed. Everything. Let's be very clear about something before we dive in. RM's placement at number 2 is not a consolation prize. It's not, almost but not quite. Number 2 on this list represents a man who came so close to being the unanimous number 1 pick that the margin between him and the top spot was razor thin. So thin that in certain demographics, certain age groups, certain regions of the United States, RM actually was number 1. The fact that he landed at number 2 overall is not a reflection of any deficiency. It's a reflection of just how extraordinary the member at number 1 turned out to be in the eyes of American mothers. But we'll get to that. Right now, this is Namjoon's moment, and believe me, he earned it. Kim Namjoon was born on September 12, 1994, in Ilsan, a suburb of Seoul, South Korea. From a very early age, it was clear that Namjoon was not ordinary. His IQ has been reported at 148, a number that places him in the top fraction of a percent of the global population. He scored in the top 1% of the nation on his university entrance exams. He was an avid reader from childhood, consuming literature, philosophy, and poetry at an age when most kids were still figuring out multiplication tables. His parents were supportive but practical. His mother, in particular, initially wanted him to pursue academics. And it's well documented that there was tension in the family when young Namjoon decided to pursue underground rap instead of a conventional academic career. He was part of the underground Korean hip-hop scene as a teenager, performing under the name Runch Randa, and was known in those circles as a lyrical prodigy whose wordplay and metaphorical depth far exceeded his age. When Bang Si-hyuk, the founder of Big Hit Entertainment, heard Namjoon rap, he reportedly decided to build an entire group around him. Let that sink in. BTS was not formed, and then a leader was chosen. A leader was found, and then BTS was built around him. Namjoon is the origin point. Without him, there is no BTS. Period. And when American moms learned this fact, their respect for him deepened dramatically. So he's not just the leader in name, a mom from Maryland said. He's the reason the group exists. That's not a title. That's a responsibility. And the fact that he's carried it since he was a teenager? That tells me more about his character than any interview ever could. And she's absolutely right. The weight that Namjoon has carried as the leader of BTS is almost incomprehensible when you really think about it. He's been the group's primary spokesperson since day one. He's the one who does the English interviews. He's the one who addresses controversies. He's the one who mediates conflicts between members. He's the one who, during the darkest periods of BTS's early career, when they were mocked, dismissed, and called nugu, a Korean term for unknown nobodies, had to stand in front of 6 other young men and convince them to keep going. He's talked about lying awake at night wondering if he'd made the right choice, if he'd dragged 6 talented people into a career that might lead nowhere. He's talked about the guilt he felt every time BTS faced criticism, because he felt personally responsible as the leader. He's talked about crying alone, about questioning his worth, about wanting to quit but knowing that if he quit, everything would collapse. And he didn't quit. He kept going. He led BTS from a tiny, nearly bankrupt entertainment company to becoming the biggest musical act on the planet. And then, when they were at the absolute peak, when they were selling out stadiums in minutes, when they were meeting presidents, when they were generating billions of dollars, he led the conversation about taking a break, about each member pursuing solo careers, about being honest with the fans about their need for individual growth. That takes a kind of courage that most CEOs, most politicians, most leaders in any field never develop. And Mom saw that. They saw it clearly. Now, let's talk about the thing that really set RM apart in this survey. And it's the thing that no other BTS member could compete with in the eyes of American mothers, his English. This might sound superficial, but it is genuinely the single most significant factor that propelled Namjoon into the top 2. American moms, regardless of how open-minded they are, regardless of how much they appreciate Korean culture, expressed a near-universal anxiety about the language barrier. I love all of them, a mom from Texas said, but realistically, if my daughter married someone and I couldn't have a conversation with him at dinner without Google Translate, that would be really hard for me. I want to know my son-in-law. I want to joke with him. I want to call him on the phone and ask how his day was. Language matters. And RM is the only BTS member who is genuinely fluent in English. Not conversational, fluent. His vocabulary is enormous. His understanding of English idioms, humor, and cultural nuance is remarkable. He can switch between formal register and casual slang effortlessly. He's done interviews with American talk show hosts, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, James Corden, where he carried entire conversations with wit, charm, and an intellectual depth that visibly impressed the hosts themselves. He's the member who, at the United Nations, spoke about the Love Myself campaign with an eloquence that made native English speakers pause and think. Wait, English isn't even his first language. When moms watched these clips, the shift in the room was palpable. Oh my God, I could actually talk to him. A mom from California said, and she said it with such relief that it was almost funny. I could call him and say, "Hey Namjoon, how's my daughter?" And he'd actually answer me. In English. Do you know how much that matters? It matters enormously. And it's a factor that's often overlooked in fan discussions, but is absolutely central to the mom perspective. A son-in-law isn't just your daughter's partner. He's your family member. And the ability to communicate directly, without barriers, without intermediaries, without the inevitable misunderstandings that come from navigating 2 languages, that's priceless to a mom. But RM's appeal went far beyond just language. His intellectual depth, specifically his love of art and literature, resonated powerfully with a particular subset of moms, the educated, culturally curious, book-loving mothers who make up a significant portion of American motherhood. Namjoon is a known art enthusiast. He visits museums wherever BTS tours. He's been photographed at galleries around the world, the Art Institute of Chicago, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, galleries in London, Paris, Tokyo. He doesn't just visit them, he studies them. He's discussed the works of specific artists in interviews with a knowledge level that art critics have praised. His solo album, Indigo, released in December 2022, was a meditation on youth, identity, and the passage of time, featuring collaborations with artists like Erykah Badu, Anderson .Paak, and Eugene. The album was deeply personal, musically diverse, and thematically ambitious in a way that signaled RM was not just a K-pop idol who rapped. He was a genuine artist with a philosophical worldview that extended far beyond the boundaries of pop music. "He's the kind of man I'd want at my book club," a mom from Connecticut said, laughing but entirely serious. "He'd actually have something to say. He'd bring a perspective that nobody else at the table has. And that's incredibly attractive, not just romantically, but as a human being to have in your family." Multiple moms specifically mentioned that they could imagine having deep conversations with RM about politics, about art, about the meaning of life, about their daughter's future, and that he would engage thoughtfully, respectfully, and with genuine curiosity. That intellectual engagement was something they hadn't felt from any other member's profile. "The other guys seem like wonderful people," a mom from Virginia said carefully, "but Namjoon seems like someone I could actually be friends with." And that's what you want from a son-in-law. Someone who's not just good to your daughter, but someone who genuinely enriches your family. His leadership style also appealed to moms in a very specific way. RM leads not through authority or dominance, but through vulnerability. He's the first to admit when he's wrong. He's the first to cry when the group achieves something meaningful. He's the first to give credit to the other members and downplay his own contributions. During their Grammy nomination announcement, there's footage of RM quietly stepping to the back while the other members celebrated, watching them with this expression that can only be described as fatherly pride. And he's not even the oldest member. That quiet, selfless, lead-from-behind approach is something that American moms recognized immediately as a marker of emotional maturity. "That's not a boy band leader," a mom from Illinois said. "That's a man, a real man. The kind who doesn't need to be the center of attention to be the most important person in the room." So why, with all of this? Number 1, Jin. Kim Seokjin. Jin, worldwide handsome, the eldest member of BTS. The man who has been quietly, consistently, almost stubbornly being the most son-in-law-ready human being on the planet for over a decade, while the rest of the world was busy looking at everyone else. And here, at the very top of this list, is where American moms planted his flag with a conviction so strong, so immediate, so unanimous that it almost broke the survey. Because when we tell you the results were unexpected, this is what we meant. Not the most streamed member, not the most followed, not the best dancer, not the leader, not the one with the most solo Billboard records. The number 1 dream son-in-law in the eyes of American mothers is the guy who would walk into your house, compliment your curtains, ask what's for dinner, put on an apron, and start cooking before you even had time to say make yourself at home. And if you think that's a small thing, you haven't been paying attention to what moms actually want. Let's start from the very beginning, because Jin's story is unlike any other member's story, and it sets the foundation for everything that made him number 1. Kim Seokjin was born on December 4, 1992, in Gwacheon, Gyeonggi Province, South Korea, making him the oldest member of BTS. And not just by a little, by the standards of Korean age hierarchy, which is an incredibly important cultural framework. Jin is the big brother of the group in every possible sense. But here's what makes his origin story so different from the others. Jin was not a performer. He didn't grow up dancing. He didn't rap in underground clubs. He didn't win talent competitions. He was a student at Konkuk University studying acting, and he was scouted by a big-hit entertainment representative on the street. Literally on the street. The story goes that a big-hit casting agent saw Seokjin getting off a bus, was struck by his appearance, and chased him down to hand him a business card. Seokjin thought it was a scam. He almost threw the card away. He almost threw it away. And if he had, BTS as we know it would not exist, because the dynamics, the chemistry, the emotional architecture of that group would have been fundamentally different without its eldest member. He eventually showed up at the audition, was accepted, and began training. But unlike the other members who had years of performance experience, Jin was starting from essentially zero. He couldn't dance. His singing was raw and untrained. He was a good-looking college student who was suddenly surrounded by teenagers and young adults who had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. And he was the oldest. In Korean culture, the oldest is expected to set the example, to be the mature one, to have his act together. And Jin didn't. Not in the performance sense. And he knew it. There are pre-debut stories, confirmed by the members themselves in various interviews and documentaries, of Jin staying behind in the practice room for hours after everyone else had gone to sleep, drilling choreography that the other members had picked up in minutes. There are stories of him crying in frustration because his body wouldn't move the way he wanted it to. There are stories of him questioning whether he even belonged in the group, wondering if he was dragging everyone down, feeling like the weak link in a chain of prodigies. And he still showed up the next morning. Every morning. Without complaint. Without drama. Without making it anyone else's problem. He just kept working. And that story, is what broke the moms wide open. That's character. A mom from Ohio said, and her voice had a weight to it that silenced the room. I don't care about how well someone can dance. I care about what they do when they're the worst person in the room and everyone knows it. Do they quit? Do they make excuses? Do they blame someone else? Or do they shut up and work harder? He shut up and worked harder. That's my number one. Right there. Done. And it was done for a lot of moms at that exact point in the conversation. But the Jin case only got stronger from there, because the qualities that make him the ultimate son-in-law material aren't hidden or subtle. They're right there, in every video, every interview, every behind-the-scenes moment, so obvious that you almost overlook them because they don't scream for attention. They just exist. Quietly. Consistently. Reliably. Like Jin himself. Let's talk about the cooking. Because this is not a small detail. This is the single most mentioned factor by American moms across the entire survey. And it's the factor that made many of them go from, I like him, to I need him in my family. Kim Seokjin is an excellent cook. Not, he can make ramen. Excellent. Actually excellent. He's the member who cooks for the group. He's filmed multiple cooking segments. He's prepared full Korean meals from scratch. He's discussed recipes with the passion and knowledge of someone who genuinely loves feeding people. He launched an eating show on YouTube called Eat Jin that became iconic within the fandom, where he would simply sit and eat food with obvious, authentic enjoyment. No pretension, no performance. Just a man enjoying a good meal and sharing that joy with millions of viewers. In various BTS content, Run BTS, Bon Voyage, In the Soup, Jin is consistently the one in the kitchen. He's the one who wakes up early to prepare breakfast for the members. He's the one who plans the menu. He's the one who gets genuinely upset if someone doesn't eat enough. And when American moms saw this, when they watched clip after clip of a globally famous pop star voluntarily waking up before everyone else to stand in a kitchen and cook eggs and cut vegetables and set the table, something shifted in their eyes. My husband doesn't even know where the spatula is, a mom from Pennsylvania said, half laughing, half genuinely emotional. And this man, this international superstar, is out here making homemade kimchi stew for his friends at 7 in the morning? Sign me up. Sign my daughter up. That's the man. And the reason this resonated so powerfully with American moms specifically is because in American culture, there's a long, frustrating history of men viewing cooking and domestic tasks as women's work. Generations of American women have fought, are still fighting, to get their husbands and sons to see household labor as shared responsibility. And here comes Jin, casually demolishing that entire paradigm by not only cooking without being asked, but cooking with joy. With pride. With an enthusiasm that makes it clear this is an obligation. This is love expressed through food. And moms recognize that love language instantly. Now let's talk about the humor, because Jin's humor is the secret weapon that pushed him past RM for the #1 spot, and it connects directly to that concern moms had about Namjoon being a little too serious. Jin is, by unanimous BTS member consensus, the funniest person in the group. But not in a class clown, attention-seeking way. Jin's humor is dad humor. It's terrible puns. It's corny one-liners delivered with complete confidence and zero shame. It's jokes so bad that the other members physically cringe, groan, and try to walk away, and Jin laughs at his own jokes, which only makes them funnier. His windshield wiper laugh, a high-pitched, squeaky, fully unhinged cackle that sounds like a car's wiper blades going at full speed, has become one of the most recognizable sounds in all of K-pop. It's been remixed, auto-tuned, memed, and celebrated millions of times over. And it's genuine. That laugh is not a performance. That's Seokjin finding himself hilarious and having absolutely zero shame about it. And American moms? They adored this. He already has dad jokes, a mom from New Jersey said, slapping the table. He's ready. He's been training to be a dad his whole life and doesn't even know it. That man is going to embarrass his kids at school drop-off with the worst puns imaginable, and he's going to love every second of it. And so will I. So will I. The self-given nickname, Worldwide Handsome, is another perfect example of Jin's genius-level charm. In an industry where idols are expected to be humble, modest, and deflective about their appearance, Jin straight up declared himself worldwide handsome and proceeded to introduce himself that way at every possible opportunity: award shows, concerts, interviews, casual conversations. He says it with complete seriousness, then follows it with a smirk or a laugh that tells you he knows it's ridiculous, but he's committed to the bit. And that combination, confidence plus self-awareness plus humor, is irresistible to moms. He's handsome and he knows it, and he makes fun of himself for knowing it. A mom from Colorado said, "That's the trifecta. That's emotional intelligence wrapped in a joke." He's telling you, I don't take myself too seriously, and you shouldn't either. And a man who doesn't take himself too seriously is a man who's easy to live with. Let's talk about his military service, because this is a huge factor that resonated deeply with American moms, particularly those from military families or communities with strong service traditions. Jin was the first BTS member to enlist in the South Korean military, entering active duty in December 2022. He served in the Republic of Korea Army as an active duty soldier, completing the full mandatory service period. He didn't seek a deferment. He didn't try to get a cushy assignment. He went in, he served, and by multiple reports, he served well, earning commendations and the respect of his fellow soldiers. When he was discharged in June 2024, he came out looking stronger, more grounded, and somehow even more charming than before. American moms, especially those who value service and duty, responded to this with an
And there you have it. All 7 members, all 7 ranks, and 7 very different reasons why American moms saw what they saw. From Suga's quiet genius at number 7 to Jungkook's golden boy energy that made moms want to adopt him at 6, to J-Hope's blinding sunshine that split the room right down the middle at 5, to V's otherworldly beauty that was almost too perfect at 4, to Jimin's angel heart that made moms cry and worry at 3, to RM's brilliant mind that came this close to taking the crown at 2, and finally to Jin, the eldest, the cook, the dad joke king, the anchor, the man who didn't try to be perfect and ended up being exactly what every mom was looking for. But here's the thing, and this is the part that really matters. This list was never about who's better. Every single BTS member on this ranking is extraordinary in ways that most human beings will never be. They've achieved things that were supposed to be impossible. 7 boys from South Korea who were told they'd never make it, who were mocked, who were dismissed, who were told that the world wasn't ready for them, and they didn't just prove the world wrong, they changed the world entirely. They changed what music sounds like. They changed what fame looks like. They changed what masculinity means for an entire generation of young men. They showed millions of people that it's okay to cry, okay to struggle, okay to not have all the answers, okay to be soft and strong at the same time. What this list really showed us isn't which member is the best son-in-law, it showed us what American moms value, and the answer is beautiful in its simplicity. They don't value perfection. They don't value fame. They don't value abs or high notes or Billboard records. They value warmth. They value effort. They value a man who shows up, who tries, who laughs at himself, who feeds the people he loves, who doesn't run from hard things, and who makes the people around him feel safe. That's it. That's the whole list in one sentence. And the fact that every single BTS member embodies at least some of those qualities, that's not a coincidence. That's why they're BTS. That's why 10 years into their career, they're not just a boy band, they're a cultural movement. They're the standard. So wherever you are right now, whether you're a mom who just found her dream son-in-law, a fan who's screaming because your bias didn't get number 1, or someone who clicked on this not knowing a single thing about BTS and is now quietly adding dynamite to their playlist,
thank you for staying until the end. And if you learned something, felt something, or smiled even once during this countdown, then we did our job. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and remember, the best person your daughter could ever bring home isn't the one with the most trophies on the shelf. It's the one who offers to wash the dishes after dinner. See you on the next list.